Hey, welcome back. You're here for another episode. Today's topic is the power of direction. Now, again, we are in the trust series, and the power of direction essentially indicates who's making the decisions when you come to the idea or the contract of a trust. All right? So, who's in control? Now, most folks usually think that, oh, well, it's the trustee. The trustee, they're the public facing part of the trust, so they're in control. And then some other folks might be like, "Oh, the beneficiary, they had the most to gain from a trust. They're in control." Well, it really depends on how the trust itself is written. So we're going to go over two types of trust today. Trust near and dear to my heart. They are the personal property trust and the land trust. Okay. So what a way of personal property trust, it works just the way it sounds. You have personal property, and that's essentially what's being controlled within the trust. Within those types of trust, the trustee is the one that has the power of direction. They are the one making the decisions. Now, if you go to a land trust is where you have the beneficiary that's in control, and they are the ones making the decisions. Now, there's a very, very subtle difference there. Now, the entity or the person that's making the decisions gets to dictate what happens with the trust, what is being acquired in the trust, what is being held within the trust, how those, how the property that's being held within the trust is actually being handled or managed, and then what ultimately happens when they sell things from the trust. Now, the whole idea is when you have a trustee and a beneficiary within a trust, there needs to be trust. So the trustee is still being compensated with something. It does not necessarily have to be money. It could be education. It could be a number of different things. But there is compensation that's involved there. But the power of direction is very important because depending on how you actually have a trust set up, it determines how you're handling wealth and how you're handling debt. And if you remember, we talked about the ability for wealth to be both private and public, and the ability for debt to be both private and public. All right? So, when you, for example, are dealing with a retirement loan, let's say from a 401k, you're actually dealing with private debt. The reason it's private is because it's not publicly disclosed. It doesn't appear on your credit report. Now, if you default on that loan, it could appear on your credit report. But, or no, it could, you would have to essentially address penalties and everything with that. But, again, when it's issued and how it's being handled on the private side. All right? Now, usually when you have debt, believe it or not, debt's something you want to be public. You don't want that to be private. But there could be instances where you want it private. And then wealth, well, wealth, isn't that something that you actually want to keep private? But some people want to keep that public. So it really just depends on what your goals are and what you're actually trying to do. But the way you actually set up the trust is extremely important because it will dictate who's making the decisions and how things move around. Now, in addition, the power of direction does not have to sit with just the trustee or the beneficiary. You could have an entire role altogether that makes those decisions. So in such cases, let's say you have a trust set up, right? And let's say you set it up for yourself and you have family and you have children and you're just trying to figure out, who's going to handle all of your final affairs. Well, you could dictate who has the power of direction, who's going to have, let's say, your best interest in mind. But let's say they don't want to have to deal with all the craziness or the job that might have to come from being the trustee. And maybe they're not the beneficiary either. Because maybe the beneficiary, maybe they're your kids and they're not even of age to make those decisions. You could actually have someone with the power of direction that's making those decisions and dictating what the trustee actually needs to do. And they can operate on that on your behalf. And so that in that particular case, you might have a special type of trust that pulls that power of direction away and gives it to, let's say, some type of third party that has the best interest in mind, but is not going through all the legwork of putting all that stuff together. All right? So, hopefully you learned a little bit more about trust today and the power of direction. Trusts are tools, right? And remember, once you learn how to use a tool, the world becomes a different place. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the trust series, power of direction that we had today. We might do a few more examples from a little bit of deep dives, but hopefully you're getting valuable information that you're actually putting to use. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Best places to find me are at escapethemonopoly.com, where you can create knivesoutwealth.com. All right, I hope to see you soon and catch you on the next episode. Have a good one.